Hey everybody, Miss Dietrich here. We're going to take a look at this question. The graph shows the relationship between the number of hours Teresa spends knitting and the number of squares she completes for a blanket. Based on the equivalent ratio shown in the graph, how many hours does it take Teresa to knit 265 squares? Show your work. So in the past, we've learned that if you look at these graphs, that one option that you have is to use, the idea of these double T tables. So let's explore that first, and then we'll talk about which ratio should you take to figure out the answer to the question. If we look at this first ordered pair here, this dot right here is over 3 and up 15. So I'm just going to put that here, and it'll make more sense why I'm skipping. I'm skipping, leaving room here, and I'll explain that in just a second. And if we look at this next dot, this ordered pair is over 6 up 30. And if we look at this one, this is over 9 up 45. And this one here is over 12 up 60. All right, so there's two ways that you can answer this question. Let me just extend this a bit, because some of you might realize what the function is. The function is the idea of whatever x is, if you multiply it by 5, you're going to get y. So that would be 5x equals y, right? If you're going to use equations, 5x equals y. So if you want to use that and substitute in this value where it belongs, because we have to figure out what is x and what is y. So let's just make sure we label that first if we're going to use that approach, and then we'll go back to using ratios. So the x is the hours that we're knitting, and the y is how many completed squares, right? I'm just going to put completed squares abbreviated. So they want to know how many hours does it take for her to knit 265 squares. So that's going to go over here, right? We want to know, what x is. So this is really the y, right? So if we're going to use algebra, then we'd be solving 2 times x equals 265. And the opposite of multiply a variable by 5 would be to divide by 5. And then if we just do this divided by this, we'll get our answer. But let's look at using ratios. Now you may see that this is really a 1 to 5 ratio. I mean, you can use any one of these ratios that you want, but 1 to 5 is the simplest one. If you did the 3 to 15, you might simplify that to be 1 to 5. So let's just explore that approach. It's a 1 to 5 ratio. And if we're using that approach, 1 represents the hours, and the bottom number is representing the completed squares. And we want to know if we have 265 completed squares, we want to know how many hours that is. So really, in the end, aren't we really doing the same thing? Because we're trying to figure out how many times we have to multiply some number by 5 that's going to equal 265. Or in the end, if we use cross products, wouldn't we end up getting something that looks a lot like what we have up here? So if we look at cross products, that cross product is 265. This cross product right here is 5 times h. And isn't that the same thing? Don't we have that pretty much over here? That's the same equation. 5x equals 265, 265 equals 5h. So either way, you're going to have to take that 265 and divide it by 5. So that's the only thing left you have to do, and then you'll have your answer. Good luck finishing that up.